So where should we start? Now, where do we start with Trinity? I think this is where so many go wrong. And you've probably seen this in a home Bible study group. And the young, new Christian says to the Bible study group leader, could you just tell me about this Trinity thing? And you know what the reaction is, right? The Bible study group leader rolls their eyes heavenward and says, the mystery. Okay, that was helpful, thank you. And then someone says, do you know, I've heard this really helpful illustration. It's that God is like a shamrock leaf. He's like one leaf, but with 3 bits. And I find that really helpful. And someone else then says, no, God's like H2O. That he's a bit cold, but then you warm him up and he becomes water, but it's still H2O. And then you warm him up more and he becomes really spiritual and gas. So it's all H2O, but there are sort of 3 different ways in which he can be God-ish. And someone else said, no, I like to think of God as an egg. You've got the yolk, you've got the white, and you've got the shell, but it's all one egg. And you think, seriously, people are going to bow down in wonder at the eggishness of God? And you think, no wonder Christians think this is just weird. This is just not relevant to everyday life. But Christians believe in the Trinity not because they think there's some similarity between God and 3-headed giants or streaky bacon. They believe in the Trinity because of Jesus Christ.
Are there any good analogies out there that can represent the Trinity? At least somewhat.
Well, I have one, though it's sort of controversial. But I do have one, and I lay this out in J.P. Moreland in my book, Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview. There's a chapter on the Trinity. And I think a good analogy for the Trinity is the mythological dog that guarded the gates of Hades in Greek mythology named Cerberus. Hercules, as one of Hercules' tasks was to go and capture Cerberus, who guarded the gates of Hades. Cerberus was a 3-headed dog. Now, that's really interesting because what it means is Cerberus had 3 minds. Canine minds, obviously, but we could invest these minds with self-consciousness and self-awareness if we wanted to, so that you would have 3 canine persons. And yet clearly Cerberus was one dog. He was one animal. And these 3 minds had to work cooperatively in order for Cerberus to be an effective guard dog at Hades. So it seems to me you have a very nice analogy here of 3 persons in one being, which is the doctrine of the Trinity, that we have 3 persons that are one God.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Craig.
Mm-hmm. And you get a picture of this in the baptism of Jesus. And if you ever want an illustration of the Trinity, rather than H2O, this is the place to go. There, the Father at the Jordan, at the baptism of Jesus, the Father declares his love for the Son and his pleasure in him as the Spirit rests on him like a dove. For the Spirit is the one who makes the love of the Father known, causing the Son to cry, Abba. And there's this lovely moment in Luke 10 where we read, Jesus, full of joy in the Holy Spirit, cried, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth. For the Father's love for him, poured out through the Spirit, fills him with an answering delight in the Father. So I hope you see it that when you start with the gospel, the triune God doesn't come across as an irrelevant philosophical headache. Here is a God who is love, a Father loving his Son in the fellowship of the Spirit. In John 20, verse 31, You can turn to it if you want. John 20, verse 31 is really John's mission statement, why he wrote his gospel. And in John 20, verse 31, he issues a call to faith in Jesus. And he says this. He says, I've written these things, I've written this gospel, so that you may believe that, listen, Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Now, do you hear what he's just done there? It's a simple call to faith in Jesus. But that call to faith in Jesus is a call to a faith in a triune God. You spot it? Jesus is the Son of God. God is his Father. But he's clearly God himself. He is the Lord. My Lord and my God, says Thomas. But God is his Father, and he's the Christ, which means, or Messiah in Hebrew, it means he's the one anointed with the Spirit. You see, when you start with the Jesus of the Bible, it's a triune God that you get. Looking at the Trinity is not going off into some little irrelevance. It's pressing in to know who Jesus is.